Welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video, doing another Friday Foursome, and this is for NovaBug and the awesome channel he does, and this regular thing he's been bringing back, the Friday Foursome, where we talk about a variety of different things in sort of a top four. Last month it was the sort of gaming goals and stuff, and I'm rather pleased and surprised. I actually was my video was the one that most people voted for, so I'm super happy. I kind of won. Thank you very much, NovaBug. That was awesome. So, of course, I've got to do a follow-up to celebrate this cheery occasion by talking about disappointment. Yes, NovaBug's latest Friday Foursome, number 25, is your top 4 gaming disappointments, and mine run across multiple decades here. I might as well start with the very first disappointment I ever had. And that was with the Atari 2600 home run game. Now, I have talked about this long ago. I actually bought this cartridge specifically because it was my very first gaming disappointment. Why was it disappointing? You have to remember that this was very early in gaming, and we assumed that a certain level of kind of quality control was happening. The idea of a video game coming out that was bad seemed impossible. It's like releasing a bad board game, which I'm sure existed, but you didn't buy them in the local stores. Like if you went to a shop and you bought a game and you brought it home, the assumption was it would be a good time. And this is the Atari 2600, the big popular video game console. So I remember going, and it wasn't that I'm a big baseball fan. I had no intention to really play baseball, but I did have, before the Atari 2600, a Pong home console thing that had a variety of variations of the Pong game, one of which was what they called hockey, and it's renamed in multiple different regions, I'm sure, but it's basically double-sticked Pong. And for some reason, I just thought to myself, well, it's not that a game has to be a sport that you're particularly interested in, because as a bad Canadian, I can't stand hockey. Sorry. But I liked playing that version on that Pong console. So when I saved up a lot of money, $40 Canadian, which, what's that, 60 today? Something like that? That was a big purchase, and I thought, right, okay, I'm in the mood to buy an Atari game, and there weren't a lot of ones on the shelf that I hadn't played already. I saw the cover art for Home Run, and I thought, okay, I'm not a big sports fan, but I liked hockey on that Pong machine. My dad watches a lot of baseball. Maybe if I'm not great on it on the actual, baseball diamond in real life, maybe I could just enjoy playing a video game version of that. So I plunked down my cash and I brought home Home Run, and I was, within minutes, I realized I just bought a stinker. Like, I was very young, so I tried to convince myself that my hard-earned cash that I saved up for weeks was not completely just squandered. I was like, yeah, I can make this fun. And then I kind of noticed I never had anybody to play against. It was always the AI. My siblings were too young. My parents didn't really care. They've joined in occasionally with video games, but not that often. My mom played the hockey game against me. But nobody really wanted to play Home Run. They would try once or twice and go, I'm busy. You play this on your own. So I play against the AI. And there's a very easy little trick you can do with the swing of the hold down the button and move the ball as you're pitching. You'll always strike them out. And you can pretty much never lose as the batter. So I sat there, I was like, this is not a very good game. And so as a result, Home Run was my first gaming disappointment. And that's why I had to buy the cartridge. I got it recently at the Vancouver Retro Gaming Expo for $5. I just thought, yeah, $5 in 2020 cash, or it was 2019, I think, versus the $40 in 1978. Yeah, no, not, that's an irony that I'll just have to live with. So, Home Run, my first video game disappointment, which actually leads me, interestingly, to my second video game disappointment, also on the Atari 2600, many people I'm sure have felt this way as well, and that's Pac-Man. Now, again, I enjoy Atari. I am now an Atari fan. But you have to remember, and I do this, I wear this shirt with an element of like, it's a logo, it's a company, it's out there to make money. They have the idea of brand loyalty is certainly not applicable to me. But for nostalgia, I wear the Atari logo and I love it as a logo. The Pac-Man release kind of tested my love of Atari at that period because having already been burned on home run, I loved playing various Atari games in the arcade, Asteroids, oh my god, Tempest, etc. But when Pac-Man was announced to be coming out, everybody was like, of course, that makes sense. It's just a joystick game. Like, the fact there's only one button on the joystick Atari 2600 controller is not a big deal. You're just moving around the maze. Pac-Man is a highly beloved, awesome, awesome game. Of course, this is a perfect fit. And for whatever reason, I think it was timing or something, they gave it to Ted Fry in Atari, who had 2K to work with and a very short amount of time. So he created what we all know as Pac-Man on the Atari 2600. And I turned that thing on, expecting, okay, it's not going to be the Namco arcade original. I'm not expecting that level of polish. Or, you downgrade your expectations when you bring home an Atari cartridge. But when I turned that thing on, and I saw that gold maze with the cookies, the big chips, whatever the heck he's eating, big bricks, and the fact that Pac-Man always faces the same direction, the ghosts all flicker the way they do, and the bonk, bonk, bonk sound as you collect the pellets, this sound. I remember thinking to myself, this isn't good. This is another, like, what the heck, Atari? What were you thinking? Ironically, I saw a documentary interview with Ted Fry, who did Pac-Man, and there was even jokes around the office. Somebody had written apparently on the bathroom wall, "Why Fry?" as this, like, why give him this very important title? To which apparently he did an engineering joke. If you work with electronics at all, you know that to invert something, you put a line across it. That's kind of the symbol of if you need 5 volts on something, but you need it to be negative 5 volts, you put an inverter on there, so you put a line across the 5 volts. Now it's inverted. So Todd went up and he actually put that little line above the thing to say, "Why not Fry?" That's cute and all, but like, yeah. And ironically, before I finish on Pac-Man, because it gets a lot of hate, it actually has a pretty good following these days. If you divorce it from the Pac-Man name and the arcade original, it's actually a good maze game for the Atari 2600. I should go back and give it another shot, because it gets a really bad rap, and I feel like a lot of people do defend Atari Pac-Man now, so in a kind of lock and chase, ladybug kind of way, like, don't think of it as Pac-Man. Separate it, think of it as Munchman, or whatever that other one was. Yeah, just enjoy it as Pac-Man, not as Pac-Man, but as its own standalone maze game, and it's very good, they say. Maybe I'll give it another try. As an example, though, of the fact that the Atari 2600 could have done so much better, there are a pile of homebrew versions of arcade Pac-Man that are out for the Atari 2600 that have shown it could have been done. It's not like it was hard. It's not like it required 64K of bank switching memory. Maybe it did. I don't know. I'm not into the programming to that degree. But I've had a lot of people say, there's this great version of Pac-Man for the Atari 2600. I'm like, I know! In fact, I've got one. This is Hack-'em, which was probably one of the first homebrews that I bought. And it's from Nuki Shea on the Atari Age forum. My God, that man is a genius. He does incredible stuff. I bought Hack-'em, and I played it and I thought, this is really fun. This is Pac-Man done properly. I love Hack-'em. I even sent him a message. I said, dude, you deserve an award or something for making a Pac-Man version for the Atari 2600 that is a million times more enjoyable. And he said, well, thanks, man, but actually there's I think it's called Pac-Man 4K. There is an almost arcade perfect, accurate representation, not the graphics, but the AI of the ghosts and stuff, monsters. There is a much better version of Pac-Man out there. But thank you for the praise, etc. So, anyway, I'm getting off topic, but yeah, when I saw Pac-Man on the Atari 2600, I was like, there's more disappointment for me. Yeah, this logo, it has a whole new meaning now. But that was then, this is now, and I've kind of learned to love Atari again. Now let's fast forward for my number 3 choice, because this is again the idea of kind of a brand loyalty in a way. I loved Assassin's Creed. When that game first came out, it was the reason I got a PlayStation 3. And I loved that first game. It has its... I've done a video about why I like it and sort of picked apart. It's got its flaws. It's not good in many ways. But I liked the first Assassin's Creed game. I really liked it. And it didn't, like, set the world on fire, but I thought, well, maybe they'll make a sequel. Let's hope. It seems to be Ubisoft's way. And lo and behold, Assassin's Creed 2 was announced. I'm like, oh, yay, perfect, fantastic. And then I saw details, and I was like, oh. Renaissance Italy, huh? Okay, with a different assassin, Ezio Auditore. Yeah. Saw some footage of him being all swaggery and, Italian stallion lover type guy, and I was just like, really? We're gonna go with that? Okay, because I had loved Altair as this dark, brooding, assassin, badass kind of bounty hunter kind of guy, and then along comes Ezio, and it's like, And I'm not a big fan of the setting. I know this is gonna sound weird and bad in a way, and I don't mean to be insulting, but Italian architecture and stuff about Rome and Naples and stuff and Venice. When I watch travelogues and I see these people loving how amazing it is to walk through the streets of various Italian cities, I'm just like, yeah, no, I don't really care. I'm sorry, I don't have any appeal. That is not appealing to me, the design or the look. Or I've been to the Bellagio Hotel in Vegas. That's hardly a good representation. But even that place, I'm just like, can we move on to the next casino, please? And I'm not alone in this. I mean, my sister, for example, she's joked where she has sort of that same allergic reaction to the Greek. What is that curly Q square thing? I don't know what that's called, but she's just like, yeah, I know, it's like you with Italian architecture. That Greek thing bothers me. I was like, okay, so I'm not alone in this. So the fact that this was going to be set in Renaissance Italy, I was immediately, and then when I saw Ezio, I was like, double, like, I don't want to watch the Jersey Shore as an Assassin's Creed game. I'm out. I'm disappointed. And it's ironic because that one has been hugely praised as probably the best in the series. I think Assassin's Creed Brotherhood gets even top marks over it, again with Ezio Auditore, again in Renaissance Italy, and again, disappointment for me. I'm out. I'm not playing that. So I kept away from Assassin's Creed for years. It wasn't until number 3 came out that I came back to the series. So that was a big disappointment. And I got to admit, lately it's kind of disappointed me again. I've gone away from Assassin's Creed. Syndicate was the last one, and I loved Syndicate. It was amazing. It was awesome. But then Origins was announced, and I thought, well, yeah, the Egyptian theme, that could be cool, and I've heard great things about it. But when I watch people play it, I don't like the changes they've made with the combat. It's a lot more of a fighting game now, less of what made Assassin's Creed work for me. Barely even has the hood, which to me is kind of synonymous with the Assassin's Creed sort of thing. So I was like, nah, I'm out again. I'm also disappointed. And even Odyssey. I've heard some people made an interesting point. I might go back to Odyssey someday if I have lots of free time. Because somebody on a podcast once said, he always plays women if the option exists, because he's like seeing a beautiful woman running around on screen. And he has played Assassin's Creed Odyssey as a woman, And he describes it as basically, if you escape from the Assassin's Creed moniker, it's kind of a Wonder Woman simulator. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I kind of like that. And I really like old stories about, you know, mythical Atlantis. And there's like a whole bunch of DLC for Odyssey that has Atlantis in it. And I'm like, you're kind of winning me over. I might go back to that. Just saw the trailer for the new Assassin's Creed, the Viking one. Forgot what it was called. This one. And again, well, it's only a cinematic, so who knows what the game is like. But I'm thinking, given Origins and certainly Odyssey have been very highly praised, people are going to flock to that one as well. And it's going to be more of that thing that I don't like in the new Assassin's Creed game. So I've kind of dismissed and discounted and gone out of, canceled Assassin's Creed. I'm out of it. That's been my third big disappointment. Speaking of Assassin's Creed, my final one. I've done a video about this. Metal Jesus a couple of years ago did a whole, what was the most disappointing console that you ever bought? In his case, it was the Atari 5200. In my case, well, it's going to be controversial. As per my video, it's the Wii. The Wii was my kind of interest to come back to console gaming. I was a PC gamer for the longest time, and I thought, I like the look of this nunchuck and Wiimote control scheme. I think there's so much potential there. I can't wait for really good games to come to it. And they never did. And it was like, okay. And I really got frustrated at how I would watch E3 or various other announcement events where they'd be talking about the latest Call of Duty or any number of, like, you know, big AAA console releases. And the interview would be like, so when's this coming out? Oh, it's coming out in June, you know, for all three platforms, PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. Oh, not the Wii. Okay. And somebody interviewed, who was it? Criterion Games, about Jeff Keighley interviewed one of the guys from Criterion Games about the newest Burnout game that was going to come out. I think it was Paradise City. And he actually legitimately said, so yeah, it's coming out PS3 and Xbox 360. How about for the Wii? And the guy laughed at him. I mean, he rolled with it in a PR way and like, well, you know, we think that we want to deliver the best possible graphical experience to our customer base, so we find it challenging to work with the Wii, etc., etc., etc. But his knee-jerk reaction was to laugh at the very preposterous nature of releasing this game on the Wii. And I was just like, what the heck? This game is capable. I mean, Mario Kart proves you can do good racing games on this machine. What the heck? And to bring it back to Assassin's Creed, this has always stuck in my craw, and I've talked about it before, even in that Wii video. So, Assassin's Creed 1 came out. I was really dying to play it. I didn't have a PS3 at the time. And I just looked at it and I thought, well, I guess that'll never come out on the Wii since it's this underpowered piece of junk, this two GameCubes duct taped together, as the quote used to go. Okay, fine. We'll never see an Assassin's Creed on the Wii since it's so weak and incapable of delivering good graphics. And then they released it on the PSP. There's an Assassin's Creed game for the PSP. I was like, oh, so the Wii's not powerful enough, but the PSP is totally okay. Like, okay, I'm not expecting the huge sprawling city with thousands of people walking around, of course, but port over the PSP game at least. Like, come on. Anyway. Yeah, the Wii, it has really good games, and I really like it, but what a lost potential. And I talked about that in that last video. That is probably the biggest gaming disappointment I ever had. So, yeah, that's my number 4. I'd almost like to do an honorable mention. This was going to be in my 4, but it doesn't qualify, I don't think. So I'm just going to put this as a little tacked on honorable mention. The 90s, as gaming went, like, you'll notice I hardly ever talk about 90s games on my channel. I started in kind of the Atari era, and I did a lot of PC gaming in the 90s because I would look at Super NES and Genesis and Neo Geo and all these other machines, and I'd go, who wants a 3DO? Why would you play? Like, I'd see these people in the various game shops, and I had a buddy, my roommate of the time, used to read all the magazines about, oh my God, can you believe this platformer's coming out? And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm here playing, F-14 Stealth Fighter or Civilization or Doom, and you guys are like jumping on a platform with your D-pad and your A and B button, and I'm just like, I was so out of mainstream gaming. I mean, I don't know how the 90s would be gauged as far as like, was that more of a PC time or was that more of a console time? Consoles have resurrected themselves from the 80s with the NES. Like, they've come back in a big way. And that era was then rising up. And I just look at them and go, no, thank you. I can't do anything with that bloody little controller with its 3 buttons. And I'm playing very complicated games where I've got landing gear and ailerons and I need to take photographs while I'm flying over in my stealth fighter. Like, how do you map that to 3 buttons and a D-pad? Like, forget it, And yet, that was sort of the conversation of the time. And a lot of people today look back on the 90s with great nostalgia of like, oh, these amazing games that came out. And I was just like, no, thank you. And so, again, I couldn't quite, because a lot of good things came out of the 90s as well. I was going to use that as one of my 4, but it didn't really fit. So I'm going to stick it on the end as an honorable mention and hope that that's okay. Anyway, this video is long enough. I'm going to submit this now for the Friday Foursome. Awesome to see this back, NovaBug. Thank you very much, and I'm very pleased that people liked my last one. I hope this gets some votes or something. Anyway, until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.